Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to all our listeners, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome back. You're listening to Ramadan Radio Wolves on 87.9 FM. You can also hear us through the internet and all the other social media platforms. Welcome. As you know, we are more than halfway through the month of Ramadan now. And hopefully the lockdown is also maybe going to ease. We'll find out from the Prime Minister today, I think. So thank you and welcome back. Just to let you know that in the second half of our show, so after 4:30, we'll be joined by a young parent who will be sharing his experiences of becoming a parent and a father and all the joys and the challenges that are involved in that journey. So, just wanted to first quickly recap what we done yesterday.
You for a second?
Sure you can.
Okay, what's your name and what's my name?
Good question. My name's Khalid. And
Thank
your
you very
name
much.
is?
My name is Ibrar. Thank you
Okay.
very much. Thanks very much, everybody who's listening. Just contact us on 07440 420 432. Thank you very much for our induction.
Thank you, Ibrar. That's really useful information. I actually do forget my name sometimes.
I'm not going to say anything.
No, feel free. You're a co-host, so feel free anytime. Okay, just a quick recap of what we done yesterday. We spoke about family rules yesterday, and we also spoke about parenting styles. We basically said that there's four types of parenting styles that people have. The preferred one is the authoritative, where clear boundaries are shown, it's age appropriate, it's warmth, shows warmth and structure. And then the unwanted or unwelcome styles of parenting is the authoritarian, where it's basically do as I say because I say so, or the indifferent style, or the indulgent, or the permissive style, as they say. After that, we looked at family rules, why they're important, what's the idea of family rules. Today, inshallah, we're going to look at family rules a bit more. We're going to look at family rules a bit more, inshallah, and we're going to break that down a bit more. So we said about family rules yesterday, Ibrar, that the family rules are here to help everyone feel safe and comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's true.
And that it also helps to support efforts to cooperate with each other. We also said that the word rule can be frightening sometimes because people associate it with discipline and maybe some kind of negativeness. But you can use other words like guide or code or something like that, whatever helps you. But the idea is to let everybody know, and because we're talking about the family context here, family rules is about letting everybody know what we expect, yeah, and what the boundaries are. So everybody knows what the boundaries are, we as adults, our children, and then we all know how to respect them as well. Yeah.
Another thing, I mean, when we said about, when we're making the family rules, we need to make sure that our children, they understand we are helping them to and guiding them to have a better life within the family, and making sure that they are aware that our say is not the final in everything, but our say is going to be basically having more authority in that respect. And we mentioned a few steps, 8 steps. Do you mind to remind everybody?
Yes, I can do. So the steps that we said that you can take in trying to formulate these rules are as follows. So we said that there's 8 steps, broadly speaking. The first one is get everybody involved. If you're making family rules, then the family has to be involved. You can't have a top-down approach, so you as the mother and the father sit the kids down and say, here how it's going to be. Yeah, it doesn't work. There's no buy-in. You're not asking them for anything. You haven't involved them. You haven't asked their opinion. They're living in the same house as you. They belong to the same family as you. You should, in effect, what you're trying to do is you're trying to teach them in this way as well. because your children are going to grow up to be responsible adults. So you are teaching them in making family rules and involving them that this is important. This is like a training for them as they grow up. Number two, talk about what you want to feel, how you want to feel in the family. Do you want to be a happy family? Do you want to be a together family? Do you want to be a family that supports each other and cooperates? So think about the feelings that are involved and where you want to be as a family. Number three, share if there's any problem behavior. If there's specific issues in your family, try and address those issues through family rules. For example, it might be your kids go to sleep late at night. So what's the family rule that you can have around it? Ask your children, what, as a result of going late to sleep, what happens the next morning? Getting up late, changing late, getting ready for school late, and then arriving possibly at school late as well. So think about the issues in your family, and then as a family discuss what are the ways that you can improve it. When children have that input, they're most likely to follow that rule because they were asked about it. Share ideas for rules. Number five, keep the rules simple and specific. Not long-winded, not complicated, not hard to remember. Simple rules. Number six, decide on a reward and a penalty for each rule. Remember, when you reward children, they're most likely to do that thing again. So if you're asking them to do something positive, and they know there's going to be a reward or a praise or some system of getting appreciated, they're more likely to do that behavior and to display that behavior more and more. So decide on the reward and the penalty for each rule. And number seven, limit family rules. Don't have a page of rules, 20, 50 or whatever it is. You just need 4 to 5 rules only. And when you do accomplish a rule and it becomes a good habit, it's not an issue anymore, get rid of that rule, add another rule to it. Number 8, as I've just said actually, drop and add new rules when needed. So if a particular issue has been resolved, for example, kids are now going to sleep on time, and now they're waking up on time, and the lateness for schools and all that issue has been resolved, drop that rule, add another rule. But don't keep the list too long, just 4 or 5 maximum.
Okay, thank you very much. And another thing what we need to remember that when we're making these rules, we need to make sure that we engage in that as well. So these rules are not going to be for our only children. These rules are basically for us as well. So if we do not involve or engaged in that process, then children may not respect that or they may not follow that. Say, for example, if you are basically making a rule on something and one thing is, please do not shout. And during the day, you've shouted 10 or 20 times in front of them. So that's not going to work because what children, they do, they just follow you. They listen to you, they hear you or hear us as parents, but do they listen all the time? They observe, especially when they're younger, they observe. And when they're a little bit older, they can basically say, sorry, mom and dad, probably in a different way, that you are not following that. Right? So when we are making these rules, let's join these rules and make sure that we are part of those rules. So it will be much easier for the whole family to follow those. And keep it simple, as Brother Khalid mentioned. There is no point of making 20 rules and half of them or probably 90% of them are not going to be followed. There should be consistency, and every rule should have either a reward or, in case there is a penalty, if there's some people are not children are not following it, which is rule number 6. Okay, now, shall we look at the rewards and penalties now?
Yeah. So basically, the golden rule is model the behavior that you want your children to follow. If you don't want them to shout, don't shout yourself. Yeah. If you want them to be honest yourself. So simple. Model the behavior that you want your children to follow. Okay, so, we're making these family rules. So it's going to be, 4 or 5 rules. It's important that the language that you use to make those rules is also important. So basically what I'm saying is we're coming to do's and don'ts. Now, language is important because the language that you use attracts a certain meaning and people will focus on the language that you use. Particularly children will focus on the language that you use. If you want them to do something, you need to use the word do. Does that make sense? Okay, let me give you an example. If I say to you, don't think of a kangaroo.
Kangaroo is in my mind now.
What's the first thing that comes to your mind, Ibrar?
Kangaroo.
Is a kangaroo, isn't it?
First thing.
Yeah? So the language that you employ is very important. I'm going to give you some examples. For example, if a rule is to do with listening, we're probably talking about children now, you want your children to listen. What's a good way to make this rule? Is it don't ignore or interrupt a person talking to you? Or is it do listen when someone is talking to you? What do you think?
If you say don't, the first thing or probably second thing will come into my mind. Okay, don't, but if I do, what will happen? Right. The second question comes into my mind. So I don't have to follow in that case. So the first thing is ignoring. That's don't becomes as a negative sort of feeling. So it doesn't give that proper positive feeling, which is this is all about. So just stick to do listen.
Yeah. So basically, what we're saying is that if you want positive behavior, then use positive language as well.
Yeah.
Because you're asking him to do something, then use the word do.
Do.
Don't say don't. Yeah. Because then you're confusing the brain of the child. Yeah. There's a lot more depth behind this, but because it's not a face-to-face session, we can't go through some of the reasons how the science works and the brain works about, the use of language or whatever. But basically what we're saying is that if you want them to do something positive, then employ positive use of positive language also as well. Another example, don't leave your things lying around. Another way to put that would be, do put your coat, shoes, etc. away when you come in. Yeah, one actually sounds positive. When you're trying to get somebody to don't do something, it's most likely that you'll probably raise your voice as well, because it's like a negative thing, isn't it? Whereas if you say do, because it's a positive thing, your use of language and your tone will be accordingly. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, because when you are saying in a positive way, mind automatically goes into positive mode. And another thing, what it does, it just shows that you're respecting that child. Yeah. And that is, even though we do not have any, measure or anything, but when somebody respects us as human beings, we tend to respect back. So, and if we give our respect to our children, and who deserve this respect more than anybody else? Right?
Here's another example. Don't shout! I think that's probably woken everybody.
I think, yes.
Yeah? But if I say, do listen, the do listen, if I shout, do listen, it doesn't make sense,
does
does
it? Together, no.
Because I'm trying to get them to do something good. Therefore, if I use good, polite language, it's most likely that child is going to follow what I'm asking them to do. Yeah? Does that make sense?
It does, yes. I mean, don't...
I hope nobody fell off the chair or anything, but I think the point is well made there.
Yes, you have. Only thing is that probably just come to my mind, sometimes we have to use this don't. Disagree with me, please. Yeah. If a child is going and picking up something which is going to harm that child, so we need to drag that child away from that we may need to use don't words. Yeah. But generally at home, unless child is going to get harmed or is going to cause any harm for anybody, try to use positive language. Try to bring these things, positivity in them, and that will make a difference to your life and your child's life.
Yeah. And obviously, when we do these face-to-face sessions, there's obviously, role plays that we'll do, and people will practice amongst them, and they generally get the idea of what we're trying to do. So some of the things that you can try and work on in terms of family rules, maybe, for example, shouting and screaming. Yeah, somebody regularly shouts or screams. Hopefully not the parents. That can be an issue that you work around in terms of what we're going to do about it, what's going to be the reward, and what's going to be the penalty. Another one might be rows, fighting, use of TV, the fight over the who gets the remote and all that, swearing, sharing toys amongst maybe the younger children, meal times, bedtime, getting up in the morning can be an issue. So these are some of the typical everyday issues that many families may face. So these are just examples of things that you can work on to do with family rules. So sitting down, yourself, your partner, and your children, and then actually going through what are the issues that we want to resolve. Where do we want to be as a family? What's actually causing us concern at the moment? And then identify 4 or 5 things, talk around it, make sure everybody's involved, then come up together with a way to move forward.
Do you think it's a good idea if we can put some of these rules, do's and don'ts, write it on some way where everybody can see? Then it is a better way of visualizing that what is do's and what are don'ts, why we are not going to be using the words which are going to be used. So probably writing somewhere on the wall, fridge, or wherever. But please make sure, keep it safe, because you don't want all the writing on your wardrobes or with the permanent marker or whatever. So please use a pen and a paper and just stick it somewhere or anywhere where you can rub that off. Okay.
It is a very good idea to write family rules down, because you need to be able to visualize the things that you're trying to stick to.
Yes.
And so not only does that tell you what the rule is, but it will also show you what the reward's going to be, yes. And it will also show you what the penalty may be as well. So that's
visual
really good.
Things they stick to in your mind generally. If something is not written down, we will forget. And when we forget, we will not be able to abide by those things. So I think that's a good idea to write these down so people can, or when I say people, our children, and we can see what are those rules and we can remind them in a nice and gentle way. Okay, that's a brief introduction about this topic. Let's move on to the next one, which is rewards and penalties, quickly, because we have got only 8 minutes left.
Okay. So the idea of a reward, we've kind of already touched on it, is that when a reward is attached to a certain type of behavior, it's more likely that the child will try and do that behavior. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's probably natural. If I know that by doing something, some goodness is going to happen to me, it's more likely that I'm going to do it.
Yes.
And if you imagine that as a child who's younger, the idea of feeling good, the idea of getting praise or a treat or a reward, it just makes the doing of whatever that thing is much, much easier.
We were looking at that earlier on, weren't we? Islamic values book.
Yeah.
And there are a few things which you picked up. Allah Ta'ala says about, if you do good, you will get rewarded. And if you don't, then there are some penalties as well. So we'll go through that quickly in a minute with you. Okay.
Right, okay. So there's many things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He encourages us, the doing of good and what the reward will be. And if you do certain things which are not good, then the possible penalty that you can have as a result of that. Is this in the way? Okay. Slightly slanting there. There are some parents who actually think children should not be rewarded. Have you come across that? And the reason they say that is that if children only do things to get rewarded, it makes them soft. What do you think?
It does happen. It does happen.
Is it right?
It's not right. I believe that's not the right way of doing things. If we don't reward them, then there is nothing they can just go for. Just like anybody else, when we go for probably a cricket match or anything, we want to win. So that's a reward for us. So depending on the child's age, so if we don't reward them, why would I do something which there's no reward attached to it?
If I told you to go to your office Monday to Friday and you get nothing at the end of the week or the month, would you go?
I'll stay home.
You'll stay home?
I'll stay
Why?
home. there's nothing for me. Why would I spend my time, my
There's no
money?
reward, is there?
There's no reward. So children are, our family shouldn't be any different. Those rewards, do not have to be very big rewards. We don't have to take them for meal, or we don't have to take them on holidays. They can be small rewards depending on the child's age.
But when we're talking about children and rewarding them for good behavior or good habits or whatever, once that habit is inculcated, you don't have to keep rewarding them for it with something physical or a treat. You can just praise them. You can just appreciate their ongoing effort that they put in to keep doing that thing. So that physical reward or a treat doesn't always have to be there. Maybe it has to be there for a younger child, because the idea that they actually physically see or get something makes it easier for them to keep doing that thing until it becomes a habit. But once somebody's older and they're still, doing that good habit and carrying that out, they're physically still, they won't want that reward anymore. What used to be a little, I don't know, chocolate bar or a lollipop or something, when he's 20, 25, he's not going to want that lollipop anymore, is he? He's going to be wanting something else. So the idea of rewarding children is probably more so when they're younger. But as they get older, obviously their habits change, their choices, their likes and dislikes change. And then by then they're mature. They know the consequences of their actions. And then it's just a case of not necessarily rewarding with something physical or material or something or a treat, but it's just to appreciate their ongoing efforts that they're making.
I think one of the important things, what you just mentioned, probably you may not have even realized what you just said. When you are going through this process, you are making a habit of these children, putting them into some sort of mindset. Yes, they need to do better. They need to do something good. And that is, I think, is it's really good thing that they are basically going into that mindset. Yes, they need to achieve more. They need to please us, and they need to please people around them. And I think that's quite rewarding, because as a human being, we interact with other people, and we do things which please other people. And why not? Because whatever we do as Muslims, that's rewarded. Whatever we do, anything which can cause harm, that is basically penalty for us. So as a Muslim, doesn't matter how small deed is, just removing a small stone from the road is a deed. So if you think about as a parent, when we are making our children, molding our children in a way that makes them help other people, and make them a better person. And that's what I was going to say, but make them a better person. That's rewarded all your life. So that is a sadaqah jariyah. So when children are behaving in a nice way, that you are earning a sadaqah jariyah, which is basically endless. Okay, just to remind everybody, they can contact us on 07440 420 432. Inshallah, after the break, we will have a young parent, we'll have a young father with us. He is grown in Wolverhampton. Mashallah, he has got 3 years old child. He's a lovely boy, mashallah. Okay, he will be joining us at 4:30 after the break. Okay.
Okay, we're talking about penalties as well. Sometimes it's enough of a penalty just to remove the reward.
That's true.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. So you're talking about family rules, and you're having rewards which are appropriate for that rule. And it should be something which is meaningful for that child or for that family, whatever the arrangements are. But sometimes just the removal of that reward is a penalty in itself. So you don't have to say, for example, I don't know, whatever people might be using, they might be using naughty step or something, or stand outside, or I don't know. It just the fact that you're going to remove that reward from them for not following that agreed family rule, that's enough of a penalty for that child, little child. I don't know, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, or what, are thinking, oh, you know what, I'm not going to be able to watch my favorite program, as an example. That is a penalty in itself. I can't let that happen. So it depends according to the age and the child, what the reward is. and hence what the penalty is. Sometimes it can actually be a penalty which is different to what the reward is.
So basically, you're taking something away from that child,
Yeah.
and that child probably value that thing very,
Yeah.
very much. And yes, that happens.
So important to have rewards and penalties which should be linked to the rule. Yeah. And it should be easily understandable for the child. And this should be obviously appropriate and something that means something for that family. Okay, I think we're coming towards the ad break.
It's nearly there. Just to add something from scientific point of view, when we come across anything which is enjoyable, that sticks in our mind. Okay, so let's try to give as many happy memories, as many happy rewards to our children, and that will make our family life in a much, much better place in this life, and inshallah Allah Ta'ala will reward us hereafter as well. And that's the main thing, this life and hereafter. Obviously we have to die one day.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, welcome back after the ad break. So inshallah in this half of the program we will be joined by a young and new parent. Hopefully he's going to come on the line. Is he on the line at the moment? Okay, just while we wait for him, we'll just quickly summarize what we've been talking about. So we've been talking about family rules, and we've been talking about the rewards and the penalties that go with family rules. So the use of language is very important. To use positive language to get positive behavior is very important. So, for example, we're saying the use of the word do when you make in family rules is more important as opposed to don't. So, brothers and sisters, over these last 5 sessions, I think we've had, 5 sessions that we've had, we have covered a number of things which we would cover in at least 3-4 times more detail in our face-to-face sessions that we have. So we started off with the 4 constructs, which is the basis of this emotional health of ourselves, our family, which was self-awareness, appropriate expectations, empathy, and positive discipline. Then we spoke about giving praise, the idea of praise for being and praise for doing. And then we spoke about guiding our children as opposed to criticizing them. So when they do something wrong, we want to guide them as opposed to put them down. We spoke about the discipline. We've spoken about setting boundaries. And we've also spoken about time to calm down. And then obviously family rules and rewards and penalties.
Okay, can I ask, is Naveed there? I think we are just waiting for the call. We missed his call, I believe. He'll be ringing us back in a minute. Yes, Brother Khalid, sorry I interrupted you in the middle.
Yeah, so I was just summarizing some of the topics that we cover. We go to much more detail in these topics when we are doing our face-to-face session.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, Naveed.
Assalamu alaikum. Naveed, are you there? Okay, maybe he'll ring in soon. I was just going to go through and share an email address with our listeners. If anybody is interested in attending our face-to-face sessions that we do, you may want to take down this email address. You can send us your details on this email address, and inshallah, eventually when the lockdown is lifted, inshallah soon, we will start to make contact with people and see when we are going to begin our next 10-week session. So the email address is as follows. It's all in words, no numbers in there, all lowercase. It's parentingskillsforyou@gmail.com. I'll repeat that again. parentingskillsforyou@gmail.com. In this, we run these sessions for 10 weeks, and the sessions are up to 2 hours. There's no computers used. We sit in a circle, as in a workshop, and we basically discuss all these issues. We use a very simple textbook, not very heavy. There's cartoons in there. We use this to try and illustrate the point, demonstrate the point, to try and understand the point. There's a lot of involvement from the parents themselves to try and talk about the issues and discuss the issues. We use games to make the points. We pair up as well to discuss things. We also do role plays. So basically, there's a number of things we do to tackle each topic that we have to make sure that the participants, whether they're fathers or mothers, kind of understand the point that we're trying to make.
Okay.
And they can fully appreciate that.
Assalamu alaikum, Naveed.
So we're just waiting for Naveed to ring in. While he's doing that, inshallah, I will carry on with what I was saying. So inshallah, if you're interested in attending our sessions, please use that email address, parentingskillsforyou@gmail.com. These sessions are run in Wolverhampton, but they can be run in other locations.
Assalamu alaikum, Naveed.
Assalam, can you hear me?
Alhamdulillah, I can hear you. It was my fault, actually. Yes,
fine.
I'm still learning.
No.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, fine, thank you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. This is Naveed Raza from...
Assalamu alaikum, Naveed.
Walaikum assalam, Khalid, how are you?
Yes, I'm fine, alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
No problem.
How is the weather in Birmingham?
The weather today is actually okay. It really rained a lot yesterday, apparently just in Birmingham, nowhere else in the Midlands. But today it's okay. It's quite nice.
All right, okay, that's good. That's good.
It's not raining.
That's good. How is family? Are they okay?
Alhamdulillah, yeah, everybody's good. Everybody's good.
That's good.
Making the most of Ramadan.
Okay, that's good, mashallah. That was I was going to ask you next thing. How's your Ramadan going? Thanks for letting me know. And do remember us in your du'as and everybody else. And may Allah, just bless us, bless everybody, and accept every small deed, whatever we do. The reason we've invited you because you are a young father, and as a young father, we want to ask you a few questions because we're running these courses, and we are helping parents from different ages. And mashallah, you are new in this field, and we want your perspective. How are you finding it, and how is helping you to, as a man, to grow up as well?
Shall I kick off with the first one?
Yeah, don't kick too hard though.
I won't kick. Actually, I should say, shall I start with the first
Yes.
one? Okay, so the first question, Naveed, is to you. Have you been on a parenting course?
We have, yes.
You have. Where was that?
We did it online.
MashaAllah.
Oh, that's good.
The reason why I ask is that most parents don't have a clue, do they? Because it's nothing that we can ever prepare for.
No,
As soon as it
nothing.
happens, you're basically in it, and that's it. You can't test the waters as such. So, okay, great. So tell us a bit about the course and how that kind of helped you.
So yeah, just touching on your point there. I mean, I think a lot of people, when they think of parenting, they just think of the physical things, like, for example, changing nappies, the late nights, the feeding, that kind of thing. But a lot of it is parenting, is your relationship with your children. So I think that's the part that people forget. And
Yes.
like everything in life that requires, everything in life that's worth something requires time, it requires effort, it requires money. So I think that's something that, a lot of people are really missing the opportunity. So the course me and my wife did, well, I say me and my wife did, it was online, and it was with some Islamic teachers that we know. And it was, we also, there was a part of that where it was a sort of a weekend session. And as part of that, they bring in a lot of the Islamic sort of side of parenting. Not that there is something from Islam as such. Islam hasn't given us any rules and regulations towards parenting. It's sort of left it open for us to experience ourselves. But it's nice to have the Islamic perspective on it too.
Okay, that's good. can I just ask you? You mentioned time in that you spend time with your child.
Yeah.
What do you think? Normally it comes up quality time.
Yeah.
How would you describe that? What is your personal experience so far?
So a lot of people describe quality time as, just spending time with your children. Now, any parent will know you spend 24 hours with your children, and obviously not all of that is going to be quality. So for us, quality time really is when we're spending time with our children, free of any other distractions. Our sole focus of that time is our children, and their attention is on us and our attention is on them. So, for us, quality time is really when it's us and Yahya and nothing else. So no phones, no laptops, no computers, nothing else. It's just us, even if it's with books or his toys and things. But in that time, he should know that we are focusing on him. Otherwise, we're teaching them to grow up with, attention deficit in our society. People are on phones and computers all the time. If children can really pick up on the fact that our parents are with us, but they're on their phone or they're distracted with other things. So for us, quality time is really time where our attention is solely focused on our children.
So quality means quality, not quantity.
Yeah, time, the amount of time we all have is limited. It's just about making the most of the time we've got and making sure our full attention is on our children.
It's just like when we're watching a movie or when we are doing other things, we are fully concentrating. When we're driving, we are fully concentrating. Exactly. So it is important that because sometimes we say quality time, but we don't understand what it means. Mashallah, you have summed up in a very, very nice way. Jazakallah for that. And it's hopefully it will help other people to understand the quality time is not amount of time you're spending with a child, but with your full attention, and child needs to understand my father, my mother, they are for me at this time. And that is the main thing which we need to understand. Thank you very much. Jazakallah. Okay, just another one for you. Becoming a father, how it has changed your life?
Oh, where do I start with that one? First of all, lack of sleep is a big thing, as any parents know. But I think life, one of the main things for me, how life really changes, and I think it will resonate with a lot of parents, is just that you just stop thinking about yourself in a lot of things, and your attention and your attention and everything you do, you start thinking a lot more about your children. So I think for me the main thing that's changed in my life is everything I do now. Even if it's things in secret or in private, we know from stories of the scholars and the prophets that they were surrounded with people who also did good deeds. And some of the scholars even used to say things like, we do good deeds not for ourselves, but because metaphysically it will affect our children. So I think one of the main things how it's affected my life is in everything that I'm doing, I also now think, how is this going to affect my children?
MashaAllah, that's a really good point what you have made.
Did you say your son Yahya was 2 years old?
Yes, 3.
He's 3, mashallah. Okay. So what challenges does Yahya at the age of 3 present to you, if any?
Well, at the moment in lockdown, I think anyone with toddlers will know the challenges. Well, the challenges obviously that he presents at the moment are, just the time. They're at the age where they want your attention. They have a limited friend circle, and the parents of, the children's parents are the people that they spend most of the time with. So one of the main challenges I think has been for us is giving him, I just spoke about quality time. You've got to think about the practicality of that as well, and actually giving him that time. And obviously nowadays it's not like it was some years ago where we're big families living under one roof, where there's a lot of time where the children are with their grandparents or with their aunties and uncles. Unfortunately, due to the society now, we live, in smaller families where it's just the mom, the dad, and the children. So I think one of the main challenges really is trying to look after your children and raise your children in this type of society.
Naveed, can I ask you, how do you praise your children, and how and when do you do it?
Well, I was listening to the show earlier on as well, and we our approach is slightly different. We don't really go for the reward, praise, punish approach, because for us it's more important that the child has these qualities in and of himself, and not for the sake of something else. Because once that thing is then taken away, there is a tendency then for that characteristic or behaviour not to manifest itself. So
Yeah,
the things
because they're
that,
at early age, aren't they? So it's probably not
yeah,
that appropriate for them. Yeah.
yeah. So I think, we praise, and we praise for things that uh, we find that are better for him. So, for example, we won't praise him for things like, um, we won't praise him for doing something usual. Like if he puts his toys away, for us, that's not a praiseworthy thing. That's something that a child needs to inculcate in themselves anyway. So we will praise him for something like, he's memorizing his surahs at the moment. We'll make a really big deal of it when, he's finished a couple of ayahs, or if he reads his namaz with us or something, that these type of things we'll make a really big deal about. What we don't tend to make big deals about is things like, oh, you've gone to the toilet, well done, or, oh yeah, you've put your toys away, because these type of things we want him to just naturally do anyway without
Yeah. So
associating
there'll be certain things that he's doing naturally. They're
Yeah.
ongoing things. They're not even a challenge anymore. It's something that he's
No.
mastered, if you like. So
Yeah.
he's on to bigger challenges for which he will obviously get praise from you.
Sure.
And what do you think, spending time with Yahya, how it is important for you? What you are getting out of it?
Well, I think it's like swimming, isn't it? Really, one of the way people learn to swim is I wouldn't recommend it, but throwing people in the deep end. I think what we really get out of spending time with our children is, one is that amazing understanding of the creation of Allah. Our children are innocent, they're pure. We could say, they're really close to the fitrah. So, spending that time with them, we see how life should be naturally. How we see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the human being. Us, we're old. We've exposed to the harms of life. We're sort of blackened with sin, whereas children are fresh. They're innocent. They're on the fitrah. So for me, it's really amazing to spend time with him and see these traits from the fitrah come out.
Mm-hmm. And earlier on, Brother Khalid was saying different challenges. And we are living in a place where we may not agree with many things, which goes against, certain beliefs. How are you going to make sure, or what are you doing, what will you be doing to stay one step ahead of Yahya, to make sure that you guide him, you help him to grow within doesn't matter wherever you go, these things are everywhere in the world in these days anyway. How are you going to basically stay a step ahead, and both of you and Raisa, both of you, how are you going to do that, and what challenges you think you may come across?
Yes, obviously, as you touched on there, there's a lot of challenges facing society as a whole, and then in particularly there's a lot of challenges facing Islam and Muslims. Now, I think one of the main things that we need to remember is that whatever happens in the upbringing of the child is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands. You can spend years and years and years giving your child good tarbiyah, and he could turn out to be an atheist at the age of 25. You just never know. So I think one of the main things that we really need to do is always have that tawakkul in Allah, and always make dua for our children. I said before, the prophets and the scholars, they used to make dua for their children even before they were married, because they understood that the upbringing of the child and what that child achieves is all in Allah's hands. And I think to stay one step ahead in that point is whatever qualities we want in our children, we want in Yahya, we try to do those ourselves. And they say a famous saying, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. So we want him to read books, we want him to say please and thank you. So we don't tell him to do those things, we show him those things by doing it themselves, doing these things ourselves.
Now, did you say you've got more than one child?
No, just yeah.
One child,
just one.
okay, mashallah.
It's one child, mashallah.
Okay, sorry, I just got the impression that maybe he had a...
No, mashallah,
Okay.
alhamdulillah, it's 3 years old. 3, he said, probably, not 3 children, 3 years old.
Mashallah, okay.
No.
Very good, very good. Can you see, as a result of the time that you're spending, particularly now, you're probably spending more time with him now in the lockdown than perhaps when your normal routine was to go to work and come back and so on. Have you noticed the changes in him coming as a result of you spending more time with him?
Of course, yeah. I think to be honest, as a father, there's only so much time that you can spend with your children. I think, all fathers know firsthand, after an hour, we've had enough, and, Allah bless our wives and mothers, that they have the strength to spend all day, all night with the children. So, but even in this lockdown period, I think we're definitely seeing the effects of spending, more time with spending more time with him. But for us, it's difficult really, because it's just me, Raisa, and Yahya. So all of our time was with him anyway. And at the moment, I think it's quite difficult with for toddlers who are usually out playing in parks, out running around type thing, to be locked in all day. But what we're seeing is, from our friends who take a slightly different approach, we're hearing that their children are really erratic. They're throwing tantrums. They're they're getting really frustrated by being locked in. Whereas with Yahya, we find him, alhamdulillah, most of the day he's calm, because alhamdulillah we've inculcated these characteristics in him before this time.
You communicate with Yahya most of the time. What do you think? What is the importance of communicating with your child in an appropriate way?
Well, it's a good question. It's a massive point, and I think what we really have to understand is, as a lot of us haven't been on parenting courses, it's not something that is usually, unfortunately, high on the agenda of things for young parents to do, especially from our culture and community. So one of the things that they teach in these courses is a lot of the things that you do as a parent you've inherited from your own parents. Now, unfortunately, due to their situation of coming to this country, they were obviously more focused on work and that kind of thing. Bless them, for what they did, but they didn't have the time, they didn't have that disposable free income to be spending on this type of thing. Now, one of the things that they really say in these courses is you really need to start parenting in a good way. You need to sort of forget the way that your parents communicated with you and really learn it again. So, I think you touched on it in the previous section of the hour, that one of the main ways we sort of try and communicate with Yahya is like how you would communicate with adults. So even from a younger age, rather than baby speak type thing, we communicate with him in a way that we communicate with any other human being. We sometimes forget that they are human beings, and sometimes they're frustrated, they cry, they have tantrums, but these aren't naughty characteristics. Their development of the brain hasn't reached the stage yet where they can express what they want to say. So it really, the onus there is on the parents to try and understand what the child wants, what he's what the problem is or what the issue is. So
that's an excellent point.
Yeah. So I think a particular example of that is if Yahya's crying, we will never say to him, Yahya, stop crying, because he cannot function the command of stop crying. His brain physically hasn't reached that stage yet. So in that situation, we'll say, Yahya, do you want to do this or do you want to do that? Do you want this or do you want that? You give them a choice rather than a command.
That's really good. That's really good, mashallah. That's a really good tip. Okay, we have got very limited time now. We are coming towards the end of the session. Would you like to give any advice to new parents or people who have just got married or recently got married? Anything, whatever you think is appropriate for a mother or a father or for both?
So I think, again, it's just we can obviously I can only advise regarding what we've done ourselves. I think it's really important to spend time, spend money, spend effort. Like anything you want out of life, you spend time, money, or an effort on learning about parenting, like the course you mentioned. These things, doing nappies, feeding, sleepless nights, these things are natural physical responses that any parent does. But to really, improve that communication with your child and to really give the child the good tarbiyah, I think it's really important that we do spend time, effort, money on learning about techniques to do this. So I think that's one of the main bits of advice I can give.
Okay. Thank you very much. Jazakallah, Luis, and really, really appreciate your time and the experiences you've shared with us. The reason basically I invited you to, because you are just stepping into this field, and you stepped into this field a few years back. So you are fresh in this area, and mashallah, Allah Ta'ala has blessed you with the mashallah. Really nice son. May Allah bless him and bless your family. Inshallah. Okay, I'll speak with you later.
Thank
Okay,
you,
Jazakallah
Jazakallah
khairan.
Naveed. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for joining us today.
Right.
No problem.
Okay, Jazakallah.
So,
Okay,
do
we
you
have
remember,
got-
Brother Abrar, at the outset, we did say that parenting is one of the most challenging, demanding jobs that there is.
It is. It is.
But at the same time, it can be one of the most rewarding as well.
Same time. It's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I've got a question. One
me?
of our listener is.
Oh, okay.
It's a question.
Okay.
Should our relationship change with our children as they grow up?
In what sense?
I don't know. There's no sense. I mean, that's the question posed on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
So yeah. So should our relationship change with our children as they grow up?
I think it naturally does anyway.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think because, when you're, like in Naveed's case, his son is 3 now. As he gets older, the child is getting mature, the ability to understand, the ability to know what's right and what's wrong, all that changes. And because of that, your relationship changes.
That's what I asked you a few
Yeah.
minutes ago before the show, that
Yeah.
yes, the things do change, and your answer was yes, it does change. And we need to respect that with our children. We need to give them respect. We
Because
need to
as
make
you're
sure-
younger, as your children are younger, you're actually physically looking down to speak to them. As they get older, you're looking straight at them.
ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਮਿਸਾਲ ਹੈ, ਜਦੋਂ ਪਿਓ ਦੇ ਪੁੱਤਰ ਦੇ ਪੈਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਿਓ ਦੀ ਜੁੱਤੀ ਆਣੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਕੇਅਰਫੁਲ ਹੋਣਾ ਪੈਂਦਾ. I don't know how to express this in
I ain't going to
English.
translate
Yeah.
that one.
So yes, it does. In our opinion, it definitely you need to be careful how you say things, because when we're growing up, I mean, if you go back and look back, if those things are not dealt with in a right way, that left a mark on us. Thank you very much. Jazakallah for everyone who have joined us listening. We are towards the end of this show. Inshallah, we'll come back
See you
next
next week.
session and we'll have more tools and techniques. Jazakallah Naveed, and thank you very much for your support, everybody. And inshallah, and make sure, please remember in your du'as, don't forget us. And inshallah, we'll speak with you in our
Ameen.
next show.
Jazakallah.
Jazakallah.